Hello, everyone. This is Geoffrey, joined by Nick. We are bringing you the round 7 of the EU Crossroads. So, this is the last round, and we are going to finish this the same way we started. We're going to be looking at an Enchantress versus Archimago matchup, similar as 1 1. Actually, one of the player is the same. That's Ewalt, and the Archimago players will be me.
And this is round 7, right? This is like the nail biter. You have to have 6 and 1 to get there. How much did you have at this point, Jeffrey?
Yeah, so it is worth noting this is not the 6-0 versus 6-0 table. So there was one they played, but not on the feature table. This was actually a 5-1 versus 5-1. So we
Ooh.
both needed to win that one to be guaranteed top 8. And whoever would end up losing would not make it. So quite tight stakes, really.
Okay. Okay, let's jump into the decks. So both decks were already featured in the other episodes. So if you are watching the whole series, we will now go a bit more quickly over it. If you want to have a more in-depth version of the Enchantress deck, you can watch round 1. But Felix, let us go through it once again.
Yes, so Ewad bringing an Enchantress here. It's not the usual color for an Enchantress. We're adding earth instead of water. It is a very deliberate and clever inclusion from Ewald. I think obviously you have access to new auras in Rest in Peace, which is great in a meta where we see a lot of vampires. I think it also catches, undead, so you get Infernal Legion and those kind of minions.
Yep.
You get access to Entangled Terrain, which lets you survive against the more aggressive deck and then eventually swing. But very importantly, you also get access to sites like Rift Valley. One of the way you can kind of counter Enchantress is you play with an M formation in your site, and you leave a void left and right of your starting location. And that means that they won't be able to put auras directly in your face and animate them, because a void would immediately banish the aura minion. Rift Valley allows Ewald to push the opponent's site into these voids and actually fill the gap. So very, very cool tech. Very clever and definitely showing the mastery of the Enchantress here.
Cool. Then, once again, your deck, the Archimago that we now have seen a couple of times.
Yeah, this is Archimago, full control, very few minion. We play Chains of Prometheus in order to lock down the board. A lot of sites to draw, heal, and maybe eventually close out the game with spells like Credit Rise and Major Explosion.
Okay.
So, yeah, trying to win in the late game.
Let's go. So 5-1. This is the big one, right? How did
It
you
is the
feel
big
going
one.
into this round?
Not good, man. Not good. It's worth noting the meta at the event was a lot of druids and sorcerers. My personal meta in the 7 round was quite different. After round 3, I only faced Archimagos and Enchantresses,
Ooh.
which means half of my deck has no use. All the poison novas, all the removal don't matter in this matchup.
Wait,
Um,
but Poison Nova works against the auras, right?
It does. The way Enchantress wants to play is it's only going to animate its aura in a big turn. So it's basically like having stealth minions. Up until they're animated, the Archimago player can't really interact with the aura. You
Sure.
have a one of dispel, and that's it. So you can leave them on the board. You can wait until you get a critical mass of them, and then animate them all in one turn, and maybe try and go for like a 20-0 or something like that.
But so every time Archimago says one off, you actually means like a two off?
Yeah, I guess so. So it is a one of this spell
Sure.
that you can hopefully recast from the graveyard.
That,
It's worth noting we saw some fire in Ewad's deck, so there could be some funeral pyre. So that second cast is never guaranteed.
that's interesting because Ewot actually only has 10 hours. Uh, so that
Yes.
is not a lot. And also, there are three. Um, I'm looking for the word, the entangled terrains, which actually go away after 3 turns. So it's not that you can just put them in on the board for 5 turns later. So it needs a bit of planning, right?
Absolutely. So you do lose some auras if you compare to the more usual water, air, fire version. It is worth noting, though, that some of these auras are ordinary, and because you're now in Earth, you get access to common sense. So as a result, it's like, yeah, you have 10 auras, but you also have, 2 or 3 ways through your common sense to fetch these auras. So it is actually pretty okay as is. Um, and so we see immediately in Iwat's hand, who is nicely showing it to the casters, we see a funeral pyre, which is a great card in this matchup. It banishes up to 3 cards from graveyards, which is obviously a way to deny Archimago the extra card advantage that it gets from its ability.
Okay,
Oh,
I have no idea what we are seeing here. This I haven't seen it on any on the other cards, so I don't know what's happening, but it's flashy.
just it looked like some flesh and blood font. So yeah, here we go. That's some trailer. Um, we so Enchantress goes on the play. Open up with a step, not much to do in turn 1, and then Archimago answers with the ruins, and we already see the 3 colors from Enchantress. It's worth noting that from the Archimago player's perspective, and I can talk about this because it's me, um, it's really surprising to see Earth in the first sight. I would have expected a water, air, fire version. Immediately, my expectations are out the window, and I have to immediately recalibrate. Okay, what am I going to expect in Earth? Like, why Earth? What is it going to bring to the table that is better than the water version?
So are you telling me that you never seen this deck or combination? Like this was really new to you?
I have, but I don't know. Like, if you show me an Enchantress list, the regular one, I can tell you 40 to 45 cards that are going to be in it.
Sure.
And this one, I know some of the cards, but like I can't tell you the exact deck list. I haven't seen it enough to like have a good understanding of what it's trying to do yet. So
So
definitely surprise factor.
Ewart casted the egg as well. How annoying is it actually for Archimago? Because sometimes you just want to do 10 damage and then the turn after another 10 damage. Of course, with the egg, you gain a life or two, so that doesn't work. Is it annoying or is it easy to deal with?
It's okay. That means you won't get there through like a couple soldiers hitting for like 5, 6 turns in a row. You really need to see your big spells, but it's not the end of the world. It's also probably it's very smart from Ewald to play the Angel Egg because there could be Archimago players that will go like, oh, I might dispel it at some point. But no, you really want to keep your dispels
Sure.
for the auras in this matchup. So a bit of a bait. It's unlikely I'll take it, but you might as well play the Angel Egg if he has nothing else to do. And typical Archimago stuff, we see a bunch of common sense for common sense in order to fill the graveyard and potentially later accruing some card advantage.
Yeah.
We don't need to show the dispel just yet, and there's no need to go and get it. And then another common sense. So we are getting to the 3 cards in the graveyard for Archimago. We get a common sense again. No reason to stop it. We are not seeing any pressure from the Enchantress player just yet. So, let's build up the card advantage.
And is this always something you do? Really fetch all your common senses, or are there situations where you say, "I actually want to have those common senses still in the deck because I need to have to keep my vision open"?
It's rare that you wouldn't do it to keep them in the deck. It's more that sometimes you don't have the time to common sense for common sense endlessly.
Sure.
So there are certain matchups where you need to respect the board. Against this Team Druid, it's very likely that I go and get a magic missile, so I can pick off a Tawny and a Warhorse, or a Tawny and a Kobold. So decks that give you the room to do it, definitely do it. But I've seen many Archimago players do it when they shouldn't and lose the game as a result. And then we make immediate use of the graveyard because we know Enchantress is in fire, so we don't want to give a too easy funeral pyre.
Sure. Oh, and here we see
Yes,
the Rift Valley in action.
here we see the secret tech, and Ewald called it as he played it. He was like, "That's why you play Earth." So showing that he understands really well what I'm trying to do to counter him, and countering me back, truly displaying a good mastery of the matchup.
So every time that I hear against Enchantress play the M pattern, but I'm like what you're playing, like if there's an M, there are two of my sides and two of your sides. So that is like I can cast my entangled terrain one step closer and still be able to do damage, right? So or
So
or is that not true?
you're always going to have a spot where you can cast your auras, right? And usually, if um, if the Archimago player manages to keep a void on his left and on his right,
Mm-hmm.
that means the aura will need to be animated in the two middle rows of the board.
Yeah,
If an aura gets animated and one of the four squares is a void, the minion, which
sure,
is now the animated aura, gets banished. It There are some auras for which being on top of the enemy avatar is not required, right? Think about like abundance, rest in peace. Like they can get animated and hit my sides in the
sure.
middle, and it's fine. There are some auras for which being on top is important, like thunderstorm,
Mm.
which is not, or you know, we haven't seen yet, but could be in his deck. So that's why I'm trying to protect my voids. It's also critical for some spells to actually have a unit hit another unit. I'm thinking about things like Critical Strike, which is a fire spell that doubles the strike damage the next time one of your allied strikes a unit.
Sure,
And so, if I can protect my Archimago from auras by having these voids left and right of me, I can avoid things like Critical Strike.
sure.
So, especially now that I see fire and earth, I'm thinking that like integral terrain on my face, that's potentially critical strikeable.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually respect some of the early damage a bit too much here, and I actually cast a border militia, which is not a great militia. Um, it's gonna make three little dudes, but because of the entangled terrain, they won't be able to move to defend, and this entangled terrain can still attack me on my home side.
Interesting. So yeah, it's always a bit tricky with those large minions covering four areas. So basically, you can choose any of the four locations, and all the rest are immobile. So with the new rules, they can still attack and block. But of course, you have that one side that is out of reach due to being immobile.
Yeah. And here, I think this is my last common sense, so I'm respecting my opponent and actually get the dispel before it's too late.
Yep.
Um, Not in a way that will make me cast it soon. I still feel like I'm pretty okay right now, but it's something I want to have. And we see the Funeral Pyre. Great card in this matchup. I had three spells ready to be recast, and immediately the Funeral Pyre will take care of them.
Yep.
So
And I see he actually only has two Funeral Pyre in the deck.
yeah, so in three color list, it's sometimes a
Yeah.
bit hard to make room for single element sites. So I think that's probably a trade off that he had to make.
Sure.
And we see a second aura, so 2 out of 10.
Hmm.
It's a wildfire that will on cast animate the entangled terrain. So we have a nice little die to show that it's animated. The entangled terrain will attack the Archimago on his home site, so I think that will be 4 damage. Um, it's and then the wildfire at the end of the turn will move up to the step to potentially threaten a bit more damage in the following turns.
So
Um,
from the stream, I don't see the life total being changed, but I
It's yeah, I think I
just
think it's my fault because I
okay.
wasn't very good at updating. I'm an old school pen and paper life tracking person, but I'm pretty sure that Archima goes on 16 here, and I think
Okay.
at some point a judge comes and goes like, "Oh, can you remember to please update
Okay.
the phone?"
And for the people who are not used to Enchantress, so the wildfire is something that burns everything around, and in normally if you play it normally it will die out. It will not have place anymore. But of course, being an animated aura, it can just move back, retrace its steps, so it actually never leaves the board. But we have a
Yes,
feast for crows on your sides.
Feast for Crows. Very good card. I don't love having to play it here because I'm feeling a lot of pressure on board, and Feast for Crows, while it can get rid of something in my opponent's deck, does not enter the board immediately. And I'm considering what I should name there. I think some of the suspects or candidates are anything that would double damage. So something like a Grim Gizarm or a Mask of Mayhem. But I think if I recall correctly, I named Courtesan Ties because it is a devastating card to play against Archimago, especially if I've cast a Craterize and there's one lying around in the graveyard. So it is something that I want to make sure they don't have. And I actually think he doesn't play it at all. And he told me, and I was like, that's fine. Knowing it won't be cast against me is good enough. Whether he
Sure.
had it or not is.
And like, I know it's perhaps a silly question, but like, why are you so afraid of a courtesan ties?
So it's twofold. The first one is I cast big damage spell, and when they're in the graveyard, they're accessible again. So it's very easy for my opponent to know when to cast a Courtesan Ties, because they'll know that like, oh, he has a Craterize in the graveyard. I know exactly what I can do when I control his turn. There is no uncertainty, no randomness to it. The second is it's a very easy way for the opponent to empty your graveyard. If you don't have the mana with Archimago, you can still banish 3 spells from your graveyard and attempt to cast one of these 3. You just won't be able to actually cast it. But because banishing is part of the cost, the 3 cards are still going to be banished. So I could be sitting on 12 magic spells in my graveyard. If he controls my turn in a way that leaves me with no mana, he can then banish all of my 12 cards in the graveyard. So devastating. I actually respect the Wildfire here as the Archimago player. It threatens a lot of damage, and I actually burned my 1 copy of this spell on it. I've seen 1 Funeral Pyre, so it's maybe a bit safer now. But if the Enchantress Ewald had a second Funeral Pyre here, that'd be quite devastating. A
Yeah.
bit of a gamble.
In the meantime, we see the entangled terrain actually doing another 4 damage, so putting it to 12.
Yes, scary, but like you mentioned, Entangled Terrain goes away after some point, so I think I'm okay trying to, let it roll out and hope that there isn't another one coming soon after.
Sure.
And then we see a Violent to start clearing the smaller minions, so one
We
goes in.
see a nice alpha version on the table. I love that
Yeah.
art.
Yeah, very, very cool art. Such an iconic card. And this is maybe one thing as the Enchantress player. Losing water removes some like cool tricks that you have at your disposal with the auras. So for the auras that actually count the number of turns they've been in play, if you animate them and then cast a silence on them, you're actually going to remove the text that tracks the number of turns they've been in play, and you can keep them around for a little bit longer as a result. But because Ewad had to sacrifice water in order to add earth, he does not play silence, and as a result can't really do these tricks with his auras. So that's why I felt pretty okay letting the entangled terrain roll out.
So, Divine Healing was cast, gaining you 7 life back. Basically, all the damage. Going back to 19 must feel good. And another blink.
Yes, divine healing much needed in that scenario. You never know, Enchantress. Some lists do run charge because that's an easy way to like do surprise damage off a Nora.
No.
So I think the higher life total you can be at, the safer you'll be in that matchup, and avoid any kind of like surprises.
That's actually interesting. So, just perhaps a quick rule question. Like, if you cost charge, you're able to animate an aura, but can you give charge to that aura?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a couple cards like this that actually don't target. They just say an ally does this or something along those lines, which means when you cast it, you don't yet need to have the target that you want to use the spell on ready because it doesn't officially target. So you get to cast charge, on cast animate your aura, and then when you resolve the charge, the aura is a valid recipient for the effect.
Yeah,
And we see the Valium getting some damage
I think
in.
so.
I think I probably took the 2 here, and then I have to play a Pebble Pass in a bit of a weird spot, just because those Rift Valley really pushed me into a kind of a weird combination or setup for sides.
Yeah, because of course, as Archimago player, you always need to be able to not get or think to not get boxed in, right? Like if they cut off your mana,
Yeah.
how that's quite problematic. I think if you still have 7 mana, I think you still probably have enough if you have enough time to put it to that door. But having 6 mana,
Yeah. I think with an egg, you really want to get to 8 because you're going to need the 10s from the Craterize. Like, attacking with Foot Soldier isn't going to cut it. Um, so that Pebble Pass is really trying to protect getting to 8. And the Violins have done a good job clearing the Foot Soldiers. One of them is now being trapped by a spider. But we can see a pretty healthy graveyard on the Archimago side. So Archimago pretty comfortable when we look at the board right now, but that might change with the card that's going to be cast by Ewald.
and we see that nice version of Lightning Bolt.
Yes, very pretty. I personally really enjoy the art, and so it's always
It's
a
amazing.
highlight when I get to draw and play the card. So board was pretty stable, which probably would favor Archimago, but the Grandmaster Wizard means the Enchantress gets to refill um, their hand, and things can be scary again. Could hit a couple auras, could hit a couple of things like a critical strike or any kind of surprise double damage. That means Archimago needs to think about closing the game at some point.
Yeah.
You don't want to let them assemble a some kind of crazy turn that would take you from almost 20 to 0.
It's such a difficult question when playing against Archimago. Like, there's always these two options. Do you save all your good cards to go for that one bang? Or do you actually, like, I understand Ewald with his Entangled Terrain, it could do 8 damage. He had the Wildfire animate, so perhaps he can pressure you quickly. Oh, but I'll hold that thought because you already have a Craterize cost.
Yes. So very on. I actually didn't remember the game, so I didn't know this was going to come so soon. But very on point given my previous comment. I think it's a good time. The Enchantress just refilled their hand. There isn't something to be answered on board immediately. Yes, the egg might mean the Enchantress will go back to 11, but actually critterizing on the site the egg is on, meaning it's at least turned off for 1 turn. So actually the Enchantress should be on 10
True,
here, yeah.
that's true.
And 11, even if they do play a site and get an egg trigger back, 11 is just another craterize and 1 damage. And
Yeah,
1 damage can come from a lot of different sources.
yes.
So to go back to your early question, is an egg annoying? If you don't hit craterize, it can be, but I think in that case, the craterize makes the egg a bit irrelevant.
Okay. So actually, it's smart to put your egg not on your avatar.
It's tough to say because obviously, if you don't have it in your avatar's hand, it's a bit more susceptible to being stolen, etc. So it's a tough decision.
Okay, so we are getting close, right? But yeah, the question like, do you keep all your things to really try to set up that big blowout, or do you really just go for it?
I think some decks can. Um, we've seen games in the first 6 rounds where this was an option for certain players, but some decks just don't have the tools to do that. So I think knowing your deck and whether or not a 20 to 0 turn is possible is probably where the answer lies. We are getting a nice look at Ewald's deck on top of having the deck list earlier. We can see critical strikes, we can see grapple shots. Like these are cards that, like, if you add them all together in a certain turns, you could realistically go from 20 to 0. And as the Archimago player, having cast a Feast for Crows, I did see his full deck, so I have to respect the potential of being, hit from 20 to 0 over maybe a 2-turn setup or something.
Okay. He
We
actually
see,
went for a spider into grapple shot to kill the other spider.
yeah, I think mostly because that's what he has in hand at this stage. Um,
Ooh.
Unfortunately, I actually hit both Crater Eyes in hand
Ow.
um, naturally, which will deal another 10 damage.
Yeah,
And his own Root Spider disabling the Violent means I can actually swing with my face for the remaining 1 damage.
that's true. So he
Um,
put down the side, so he was actually at 11, so 10
Correct.
now. But as you say, you take that one step forwards, putting it to death's door.
Yeah. And so I know at that point we know Courtesan Ties is not in the deck for the Enchantress player. We see 2 Crater Eyes in the graveyard. I guess a Funeral Pyre could be a way out, where if you take both
True.
Crater Eyes and the Lightning Bolt, maybe there isn't um, damage left.
Yep.
Spider comes up, attacks for 2, Violent attacks for 2 as well.
Yes.
And we're seeing the hand here. It's a Bury, an Earthquake. And these are exactly the types of cards that you don't want to see against Archimago.
No.
They're the things that are here to remove minions, but Archimago does not present um, any real threats that you have to answer with these cards. And it's part of the philosophy behind the full control list of Archimago. If you never play a big minion, and all the removal cards are going to be dead in your opponent's hand. And I think he well realizes there is no answer
There
and
you have it.
extends the handshake.
And you even show him that you still have a major explosion in hand. Like, this is actually sometimes surprising that Archimago can actually move quickly also. Like, if you have all the big spells in hand and you just ramp up to the mana slowly, then there's no reason to prolong the game further. You just throw everything on their heads and the game ends very quickly.
I mean, as always, it's a TCG best of 1, so there's a bit of luck to it, right? I was very lucky to not see Poison Nova, all of the things that I don't want to see against an Enchantress. I was lucky to hit both Crater Eyes and Major naturally, so I also have to recognize when luck plays a part for sure.
Sure. All right, so this wraps up the very first part. This was day one on the European Crossroads on the Saturday, where actually one player went 7-0, which was actually Isham, which we saw in the sixth round. And then 7 other players actually got to 6-1. So by now, the top 8 was known. And we have the finals already published by the Eric's Curiosity team themselves. And we are still waiting on the semi and the quarter and half final. But whoever does it, we will definitely bring it as soon as possible because the top 8, we had all the best players and the best decks there for sure. And some amazing matches still happened. Any closing thoughts, Geoffrey?
No, it was great to be able to comment some of those games. It's a thing I love to do. Every time I go to a tournament, I go to the organizers the first thing in the morning. I go like, "Hey, if I get out, I want to cast some games." So very, very enjoyable experience.
And
Thanks for having me, Nick. And yeah,
very funny that I remember because honestly, the Crossroads at Europe was amazing. It was super well organized. But I remember actually asking Geoffrey, like, hey man, are you going to draft with us in the evening? And he was like, are you crazy? We are going to just sleep. We had a full day of Archimago. I mean, you reached the top 8 like all the other 7 players. And I mean, there are some amazing prizes on the line, right? We had the rainbow foils for the top 4, which is incredible. And so, yeah, stay tuned for all the rest to come. So we still have the 3 matches, and they will not disappoint. See you soon. Bye bye.